GeoVax is working on an Mpox and Smallpox vaccine using the MVA platform and is preparing a trial to start in the second half of this year. There's a single Mpox vaccine available now called Jynneos, but it's manufactured outside of the U.S. Why is it important to have a domestic source of the Mpox and Smallpox vaccine?
It's critically important to have a domestic supply source. It was just recently acknowledged yesterday by President Trump. We signed an executive order about proceeding faster towards domestic manufacturing of pharmaceutical components, pharmaceutical products, et cetera. That includes vaccines. And the reason why that was stated was for biosecurity. We don't want to be dependent on other nations. If some of these nations that used to be friendly so suddenly are no longer friendly, if there were other problems in the world that could slow down the process and we become less reliable of being able to deliver the vaccines in our case and those types of things with it. And so it becomes critically important from one, not having a monopoly worldwide, which is never good from an economic or I would say biosecurity standpoint, but also being assured that we can deliver what we need to domestically, as well as contributing to a global supply. So this is critically important. We are advancing and have a plan now with our CDMO of moving towards a new manufacturing process for MVA, for all MVA type products. It'll produce a greater yield. We've validated it's greater yield, able to do more production runs more frequently. That gives you sort of a compounding effect. And also, it reduces the cost, at least so far, our estimates, at least 5-fold. So you get something more produced, shorter time period, faster being able to expand to upgrade.
Which means lower cost.
At a lower cost. So that becomes very important from a biosecurity. And we will be, when we transition to this advanced manufacturing process to a suspension cell line process for MVA, we anticipate that will be done in the United States also.
So what are you changing compared to what Bavarian Nordic is doing now with the MVA platform over in Denmark?
In Denmark. Right now, Bavarian Nordic, GeoVax, anyone that would be manufacturing MVA would be utilizing chicken embryonic fibroblasts, or CEFs. So those are basically using cells out of eggs that are derived from specially bred chickens. And they're inoculated. You extract the cells. You go through a very slow, cumbersome process of growing those cells, and then you have to extract your material from there to get to there. It's a very slow, cumbersome.
Time-consuming.
It works well. And so what we did starting 5 years ago was the company we looked at, and we identified 4 avian cell lines, because MVA only replicates in avian cells, so chicken, ducks,
which is also a safety feature too.
Exactly,
right?
It's safe also because they do not replicate in humans, so it's exquisitely safe. So that part is very good. None of these concerns that we have expressed about some of the other technology. Exquisitely safe, have been well documented for the last 50 years how safe they are. But what you're also able to do in a cell line process is, one, you don't have to do a new master seed virus every time you produce a new lot. You just basically pull that cell line out of the freezer as you do, so it's maintained in a frozen state, and you go straight into manufacturing and produce from there. So we demonstrated that by doing that, we compared it to the traditional CEF, and we compared each of the cell lines we tested to each other. The one we have licensed, we showed a 10-fold increase against CEFs and 2 to 5 performance enhancement over other cell line options that we went to. So we showed that worked. We showed that we could produce much more per lot by doing it than what you could get, and more lots more frequently, and also we estimated the cost in doing that. So our goal is we will initially manufacture in CEFs just as Bavarian Nordic does. That will establish our reference standard for MVA, and then we will transition where we'll be producing the same product that is our product, both in CEFs as well as the suspension cell line.
To make sure
and we compare
exactly.
So it's apples and apples, not having that confounding factor of someone else's.
But the advanced
MVA.
method is actually a lot less complicated and much less expensive.
What's most important is Africa, which is in dire need for just the MVA. Right now, there's not one manufacturing facility in all of Africa that manufactures MVA. In fact, what is frightening to me is that there's not one manufacturing facility today in the United States that manufactures MVA. We'll be the first that produces that for commercial grade. as we move forward with advanced manufacturing for MVA in Africa, that will enable the implementation in existing manufacturing that is not MVA based. They'll just simply be a tech transfer.
Okay.
So it provides Africa the ability to become self-sufficient. We've been in discussions with the Africa CDC, the Director General and his staff, for over a year now, and their goal is to be able to do it themselves and be self-sufficient.
Okay.
We share that with them, and we're in discussions with them because what we're working towards is that as we implement this suspension cell line, we'll work with facilities in Africa to do tech transfer. Then we'll do a transition process. We'll always receive royalties on it, but they'll become self-sufficient and have their own basis from everything from drug product through final fill and finish. Right now, today, the best they could get from Bavarian Nordic would be to set up a fill finish operation in Africa. Everything else will still have to be in Denmark, and that's unacceptable to the nations in Africa.
You know, one avenue that might allow you to get approved outside the United States would be through the WHO, through their emergency use declaration. Tell us about that avenue and how your vaccine might go down that pathway.
Exactly. WHO has a process of pre-qualification and also emergency use licensing. So as you enter and you have clinical stage product, which we're very close to having with our GeoMVA, then one can then apply and work with them to go through the pre-qualification process now, which can then lead to WHO granting emergency use licensing for the use and distribution administration of your product within certain needed environments. Certainly the major area right now is Africa. Africa has previously stated that they need 25 million doses in 2025 alone. They anticipate the most they could get from Bavarian Nordic would be between 2 and 5 million.
Wow. Okay.
Huge shortfall. So we have for the last year and a half been in continuous discussions with different parts of WHO, especially the ones who are running the Mpox program, et cetera, and in discussions, and their interest has been let us know as soon as you not only have manufactured clinical batch material under CGMP, we've done that now, but as soon as it's vialed and ready to go into patients, because that then can trigger the event that would enable us to go forward in those discussions now. We're very close to being there now. We just had discussions week before last with certain WHO representatives and others on we call them stakeholders from a global basis, about the status we're at and the fact that right now we're moving into the fill finish, and we anticipate having our clinical trial that we're going to be running initiated before the end of this year, but we've produced significant in excess of what we need for our clinical trial to be able to utilize in discussions with WHO and other parties.